Hey, I am really excited about today's guest, Chris Gronkowski. Chris has an amazing story. First of all, he played for the Dallas Cowboys. He played 4 years in the NFL. And I remember him. And he was on Shark Tank in 2017, and he did a deal with Alex Rodriguez and Mark Cuban. He's built an amazing business. I'm a customer, by the way. And today we're going to talk about the journey he's been on. We're going to talk business. We're going to talk a little football. We got a big announcement yesterday.
Big action.
So you've heard of the Gronkowskis if you're a football person. But hey, we got a lot to cover today. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, you're a neighbor, basically. How'd you get from Buffalo to Texas, by the way? You're in Colleyville. And moving to Southlake, I believe you're building a house. I was in Southlake 23 years, so I'm a big fan of that area.
Yeah, so how I got here, pretty interesting. So grew up Buffalo, New York. I was there whole childhood. From there, it was a journey to college. I wanted to play college football. First, actually committed to the University of Pennsylvania. My dad was all excited. He said first Ivy League son in the family. He was all pumped. It wasn't just a family of dumb jocks. And I was kind of the one to prove it, right? And the last minute, I ended up getting a full scholarship offer to the University of Maryland. Accepted it. I wanted to play at the highest level, but at the same time, I also didn't want to pay for college. That was a big difference there. Leaving college out of the University of Penn had probably $200,000 in debt. So I ended up taking this full D1 scholarship 2 weeks before the summer ended. And it really came about because a bunch of the players were about to go on academic probation. Some of the incoming players didn't make it. They didn't pass grades. So they gave it to the guy who had good grades that could come in and bump up their GPA a little bit for the football team. So I tell people all the time, I got the first college scholarship, athletic college scholarship, really by having good academics. So pretty interesting how that worked out. I ended up being there for one redshirt season, then one season, and then I ended up transferring to the University of Arizona. Played there. Never thought I'd make it to the pro level. Got a chance. Ended up making a team. Bounced around for a little bit, and then went back to Dallas where it originally started. Went undrafted, so I didn't get drafted, but went undrafted to Dallas. My wife, who's from Buffalo, her family was down here. Her dad got transferred here 6 years before I went to the Cowboys. And everyone fell in love with Dallas, thought I was going to be here forever playing for the Cowboys. And that lasted for one season before I started bouncing around to other teams. But ended up coming back. Love it here. It's great for business. No state income tax is amazing. Being centrally located has been awesome. But just having family around is really what's key.
No, I love that. And again, you grew up in Buffalo, 5 boys. And you're big. I mean, you're 6'2", but you're not the biggest, right?
I'm the smallest.
So tell us a little bit about being a Gronkowski. And for those that are football fans, they've heard of Rob Gronkowski, who's not only your brother, he's also a partner in Ice Shaker, the business, which we'll be talking about. And again, with Tom Brady coming out of retirement yesterday.
Big news.
Maybe you can break some news for us with your brother Rob.
I'm waiting for him to call me up and be like, "Hey, I'm coming back." But it's interesting. I mean, I thought it was a great time for Tom to step away from the game. I thought he proved everything he had to prove. The salary cap didn't really make sense anymore. The talent, I thought kind of, it's going to be tough to keep around because guys are willing to take a pay cut for 2 years. Not really willing to take a pay cut for 3 years. A lot of times that's a guy's full career, on average in the NFL. So, it's tough to keep people there, that much talent around. So I don't know. I'm actually sitting on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happens as well, to see how they pull off, some incredible talent back in Tampa again. But if anyone can do it, it's gonna be Tom Brady.
Well, obviously Tom makes more on his endorsements than he does probably his NFL career. I mean, that's for sure in the basketball world. But Tom does a lot of endorsements, right?
Yeah, Tom's, and I think people are finally starting to realize this, but Tom's always taken less than any other quarterback. You see someone like Patrick Mahomes sign for $100 million. You never heard of Tom Brady, who should be signing for $100 million, signed for $100 million. He's always taken less, which in turn built his legacy. He was then able to surround himself by talent. And I still think a lot of people miss that. You see a team win a Super Bowl, and the next year the whole entire team's depleted because they paid their starting quarterback a ridiculous amount of money. Right. If that quarterback takes less, keeps talent around, he might go back to the Super Bowl again. So I think that's one of Tom's best best legacies. It's the fact that he's never been overpaid. He's always actually been underpaid. And I could see that happening too, where he cuts back a little bit this year just to get more talent in.
No, and that's smart, like you said. And by the way, he might say, I'll take less, but you got to get me some offensive linemen, right? That are going to protect me so I can play a couple of years longer, right? I had a sense he was going to come back because he never really totally closed the door. He left that window open. But Rob's got to be excited, I would think. But you'll know soon enough.
We'll see. I mean, he's not under contract, so he is free to sign wherever he wants. He's free to do whatever he wants at this point, really. But I think as an athlete at that high of a level, if you can still perform, you're always going to have that itch to go back. And I think that's what happened with Tom. That's initially what happened with Rob as well. When you leave at the top, it's very hard not to come back. You always have that what if, I got one more in me. Let's go back. Let's try it one more time. And I think Tom knows he's still good. I think Rob knows he's still good. So we'll see what happens.
And they're better together than apart. Of course, they hadn't been apart very often. If
Never.
ever. Tom's been without Rob, but yeah, Rob was always with the Patriots and then Tampa. So growing up in Buffalo, so you have 4 brothers. All 5 of you played professionally in sports, 4 in football and 1 in baseball. So were your parents like in the Olympics or something? Like how does that happen, first of all? And just talk a little bit about growing up.
Yeah. So my dad, he did play college football. I think he was a scab player at one point as well. At one point he had a Bills contract on the wall, and once we all went pro, that thing disappeared. We've never seen it ever since. So it wasn't for very long or for very much money. But he's a good player. He blew out his knee. He was the offensive lineman, and he also started having kids when he was 21 years old. So it's pretty hard to balance all that, especially then. I mean, he didn't have any money either, so he had to start putting food on the table. So I'm not sure how we all ended up getting to that level. I think a lot of it was just taking 5 boys, putting them all together, and then saying, hey, you're not going to be sitting around playing video games. You're not going to be watching TV. Get outside, get the energy out, do whatever you have to do. And that just bred competition. We ended up having like this awesome neighborhood too, where I feel like every couple houses, there was another kid in the neighborhood that was around our age. And so we just had that house where everyone came to, and everyone came over, and we played against each other in every sport you can imagine, and competed in everything from, made up games in the backyard baseball. We called mini stakes. Like you had like the little memorabilia stakes. We turned them into like little hockey sticks instead. And we're in the basement checking each other through the walls, and everything just became this massive competition. And I think that just led right into sports.
And any hockey in there too?
Oh, big time. So we grew up playing, and it wasn't football. It was hockey and baseball were the main 2. Grew up a lot of hockey. That was the first sport. You had the little cone.
Right.
And you're sitting there getting pushed. You're pushing the cone around, learning how to skate. And then that just led into hitting.
Right.
The second you could hit, before you could even hit, you were trying to lay guys out on accident. It was on purpose for sure. But that taught us how to hit. And then really once we got to the high school level, we realized that, hey, our team's really good. They win states every year. You either have to commit now to only playing hockey, and that's it. That's the only sport you're going to play. Or, you can go to play football, baseball, basketball, all the other sports still. And we all chose to do that instead. So at the high school level, we all stopped playing hockey, and we started playing football at that point. And all the skills that we learned from hand-eye coordination to hitting people in hockey all transferred right over to football, and kind of just became this great fit for us.
So lots of blood, so your mom wasn't a helicopter mom, I guess, right?
Yeah, that would have been impossible.
Yeah.
I still don't know how my mom even got us all to practice. It's 5 boys. We played all the travel teams. We all played multiple teams, multiple sports. And by the end of the day, my mom would have this calendar. It was huge because it had to be, because she had 10 things on it every day. And she'd write it, hand write it all on there, scratch it off after each one was done. And there was just so much on there that she physically could not bring us all to every practice, every game, commute, like we were going to church and all that too. And what she had to do was actually get other coaches and other neighborhood friends and family to bring us, because it was physically impossible for her to take us to each and every practice. And thinking back on it, and now that I have kids, it gets even crazier, but thinking back on it, it's like she did all that without a cell phone.
Right.
So you don't even know how to get somewhere. You have like the actual maps out. If something happens and you can't get there, you're calling up a landline, trying to get a hold of someone at at the ballpark or at their the house down the street or whatever it is. That just is insane to me. Like that feels like a full-time operation that she put together just to get us fed into practice, into school every single day.
Have you got to tell her that? Have you got to recognize that with
Yeah,
her?
for sure. Yeah, I had her on my podcast, and yeah, for sure. Like that was one of the big things I hit on. We had a Mother's Day podcast, and I was like, Mom, like the more kids I have, the more impressed I am with you.
Same with me. Yeah, I saw, my mom had a full-time job, 4 kids, totally different ages, all kinds of stuff going on. And like you said, I mean, no cell phones. And so competing for dinner, I'm sure you guys didn't get to sit at the dinner table every night. And I think of Michael Irvin talking about having 20 siblings, and you had to get yours, whatever mom made that day, and it would go pretty fast. But I'm sure you guys got big appetites. Was it sometimes no leftovers?
That was another competition. So, who could eat more? Who could eat fastest? What would usually happen is my mom would start making something, and we'd eat half of it before she even finally cooked, like it was actually done being made. So, cookies and stuff like that, we just eat the dough. Even when she was cooking dinner, like we'd be sitting there just eating it. So my dad would always get mad because he came home a little bit late from work, which happened all the time. He was actually, he was starting his own business. He's working 2 jobs for 6 years, starting his own business. So he'd come home late. There's never any food. So he was always, where's my food at? We'd finish it off. And if we didn't finish it off in round 1, we came back like an hour later and boom, we finished it off. So we definitely had the rule where if you put it on your plate, you had to eat it. You had to eat everything. We never left scraps. If there was leftovers, we ate it the next day. Some people, I got to college, people are like, you eat leftovers? I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? I love leftovers. It's my favorite. If people think we're crazy, I'm like, that's the best part. So, but yeah, that's how it was. Every single meal was cooked by my mom from breakfast. We packed our lunches, and then we never ate out because it was like absolute mayhem to try to take us to dinner. So this is great. We had one time a month, she would reward us if we all behaved and we go to Denny's, the breakfast place. And back then it was $1.99, you out of your mind grand slam. So it was like 2 eggs, 2 pancakes, like 2 strips of bacon or whatever. And there was multiple times where we were good for the whole month. So we start going. And by the time we got halfway there, we'd turn around because we were all fighting in the back of the car. So we didn't even get it. So we had to go back home and go eat at home.
You mentioned the synergy between the neighborhood, also your brothers, right? Really helped elevate your competition. And, you notice it in music, you notice it in sports, you notice it in all facets. There are these pockets, whether it's Memphis or Seattle or, Liverpool, where genius comes out of. And it's because of that, right? That synergy of people all pushing each other, and then to have it in your own family, 5 brothers. And like you said, sounds like you guys were pretty competitive.
Yeah, I always thought it took me to the next level. I played with my older brother, Dan, in high school, and even growing up on some of his teams like hockey and Little League, stuff like that. And then once Dan went to college, I played with my younger brother, Rob. And so it was always this thing where you wanted to beat the older brother. You wanted to be better, or at least as good as the older brother. You wanted to score more goals, hit more home runs, whatever it was. But then at the same time, once you play with your younger brother, you're like, hell no. He can't even come close to me. I got to make sure I'm balling out. I got to go 100%. You can't even he can't even come close to my greatness, right? So it was just nonstop. And then what we would do next is, it was 2 ages different. So it was 2 years different between each brother. So it was very hard to beat them. At that point, they're significantly further along, better athletes. And, we would then go after each other's friends. That was the big play then. So we would be better than, the older brother's friends, and we'd be able to fight them too and beat them up, stuff like that. So that always became the next challenge, was if you can't beat the older brother, you got to beat his friends.
So deciding to go play in college, you weren't really getting the phone calls. You weren't recruited much, right? And so you decided to go for the academic side of things. And I interviewed you at my inner circle, and you talked about even going to visit Harvard.
Yeah,
And,
that was good.
There's a story behind that. But Rob at the same time became this 4-star recruit, maybe 5. And how did that dynamic work? And by the way, you ended up both eventually at Arizona playing football. And that's what took you from, I think you had set out to be an accountant to playing for the Dallas Cowboys and having 4 years in the NFL. But tell a little bit of that story of how you ended up at AU with Rob. And was that a scholarship, by the way, or was that a walk-on?
Yes, that was interesting. So I was second year at Maryland. Rob comes to visit. He's one of the biggest recruits in the whole nation. My dad's there as well. It's a spring game. And the coach sits him down and says, your brother Chris is never going to play for us. And this was after I showed up there. I did what they asked for me to do. I had really good grades, worked as hard as I could. I was actually the highest strength index on the whole running back room as a freshman. So I was putting the work in. I was getting good grades. I was doing everything I could. And I got hurt in one practice that the coach just absolutely hated me for after that point on. And he was just old school, next man up mentality. If you can't play, you're out of here kind of thing. So it really came to a point where I walked down the hallway with him. And this is a big guy. This guy is like 500 pounds. Like, he's massive. I walk down the hallway and he's walking the other way. And I say, hi, coach. And he turns his head and looks the other way. And at that point, I'm like, I'm not playing for this guy. So brother comes in, he says the same thing. He meets him. He goes, I'm never playing for that guy. So walked out of that room and I said, let's go somewhere together. So he had a family friend that absolutely loved Arizona. They were garbage at the time. They hadn't won a bowl game in 10 years. And he just kept convincing us that it was the greatest program ever. And it wasn't at all. But the whole thing was there was an opportunity there to go in, and for Rob it was, hey, you're going to be a big fish in a small pond. You are going to probably start freshman year. You're going to get a lot of catches. Sonny Dykes is coming. I think he was at Texas Tech where he threw the ball over 80 times to a tight end, and you're going to be a superstar. Is what it comes down to. You're going to turn this program around. So convinced him enough. Brought him to a pool party. Brought me to a pool party. There was a kegger, t-shirt contest, all that. We're like, man, what is this place? Coming from Buffalo, New York, right? And at that point, it was like, let's do this. Let's have fun. Let's do it. Let's go to Arizona. So I ended up transferring there first. I did have to pay. So they said, hey, if you come here, walk onto the team. If you are able to at least play special teams for us, we'll put you back on scholarship. That was kind of the game plan. At that time, too, I had to sit out a year because I transferred. It's not like now. Like, now there's a transfer portal. You can do whatever you want and get paid now. Back then, you couldn't get paid, and you had to sit out a full year if you transferred. So with that, I was like, hey, it's a good opportunity for me to try to play baseball. So I went back to baseball. I thought, I was good in high school. I thought I was good enough to play college. I walk on to the number one team in the entire country at that time and made the team. I don't know if it was because they just wanted Rob to come to school there, or if they were actually letting me on the team because of my talent. But if you take 2 years off and then try to play for the best team in the nation, it's pretty challenging. So I tried, went through it, did summer ball, all that. And I was actually doing both sports at once. And it just came to the point where I was down like 30 pounds. I was lifting for baseball and football on the same day. I was doing double headers on the weekend for baseball and then practicing football 3 days of the week as well. And it was just mayhem. So I finally just said to the coaches, like, I got to choose. There's no way. Plus, I was a full-time student on top of that as well. So at that point, went in, hung up the jersey for baseball, and I said, it's time to play some football. So my year had ended, and I went back out on the field for football and was lucky enough to get an opportunity to play fullback. They pretty much told me, hey, this is a position that's going to get like 8 reps a game. Do you want it? Like, do you want a chance to play this position? I was like, yeah, why not? That's cool with me. So went in there, played 8 snaps the first game. Ended up doing well. Ended up playing probably 15, 20 snaps the next game. The next game was probably playing 30 to 40 snaps. So just by proving myself, just kept moving up. And at that point, realized that, hey, there might actually be a chance to do something here with football.
And then, Chris, that led to the NFL. By the way, I'm going to have a sip of coffee using my ice shaker mug here that we'll get to that story here shortly. But hey, cheers.
Cheers that up.
Yes. Hot or cold, by the way. So
Mine's ice cold. Sorry. I might hear the rattling of some ice over here.
I saw some of the videos of you and Rob while you were in Arizona. And I'm not talking football, I'm talking dorm room.
Yeah.
And had you guys been big partiers before that in Buffalo, or was AU part of the catalyst that, because Rob has a bit of a reputation now as being a fun guy, and celebrating and having all kinds of crazy energy. I take it that was already in the DNA, or was AU a bit of a catalyst?
Yeah. So, when you grow up in Buffalo, I think you see what the Buffalo Bills fans are like. They're slamming people through fire or through tables that are lit on fire.
Not a lot to do in the wintertime when it's snow all day. Yeah.
So I think you're, up north, that's kind of how it was. Like you grew up partying. Everyone did. Everyone was diehard fans. Everyone loves betting on games. Like that's kind of just the culture that you grow up in. So that's how we were born and kind of raised into. And then we were in college. So you take that, you bring it to a college atmosphere, and it's a good time.
And so for the NFL, you weren't drafted. How much of a decision was that to say, hey, I'm going to go try out for a team?
Yeah, so this is kind of how the process works. When I left college, you have scouts and you have agents come in as well, and they kind of tell you like, hey, you have a chance, or like if you don't have an agent coming for you, it's because you probably have no chance for the most part at that point. So I was a bubble, I was kind of the bubble guy. So I had like lower end agents reaching out like, hey, love to pick you up, but you still have to pay for your training kind of thing. And then I was lucky enough to get an agent that would pay for my whole training. So at that point, I'm like, hey, I somewhat got a chance here. Like if this guy's willing to pay for me to go to Miami and pay for my training for 3 months, put me in a hotel the whole time, pay for all my food, I probably have some kind of chance here. So he's probably hearing back from the scouting department that, hey, this guy looks pretty good. We might draft him, that kind of information. So you leave college. I graduated, left, went to Miami, trained for about 3 months. This is all out training. Like this is, all I did was train all day, every day. Every meal was given to me based on the nutrition I needed that my nutritionist thought I should have. And after that, it was, you're doing these workouts.
Were you by
all
yourself, or was this a group of
group of players training?
The same agent had put together, I guess.
Yeah. So you actually would have a couple different agents sending all their players to a trainer.
Okay.
And there's probably, at that time, there's probably 3 or 4 big time trainers or organizations that were training guys for the combine.
Okay.
So I went to Bomberito Fitness out in Miami, and it's all about just, hey, this guy got my last client down to a 4.5 and he did this many reps and, just get you right. So all you do is sit there and you train to become the best combine performance, athlete that you possibly can. So you're working on your 40-yard dash, you're working on your verticals, you're working on all your splits, and that's pretty much it. And you're doing that for 3 months straight. So show up there, running a 40-yard dash, probably about a 5.0 because I was coming in hurt. Rob was coming in hurt as well off back surgery. And, we had to get down to a time that got us good enough to get drafted. So
Rob left early. And so you guys went to the NFL at the same time? He
ends up leaving early as a true junior.
Okay.
I leave as a redshirt senior. So even though we're 2 years apart, he's leaving at the same time as I am as a 20-year-old. Entering the draft is, I think he was the second youngest that year.
Okay.
When he was playing. So at 20 years old, he got drafted. But so we're training together 3 months, all in, all day. We're both recovering from injuries, trying to be the best that we can when the combine comes or when pro day comes. So he went to the combine, ended up having to miss it because he wasn't ready yet. I went to pro day because I wasn't invited to the combine, but I was able to run in front of the scouts on pro day. And, went from that 5.0 and he was probably at like a 5.2 because he's coming off back surgery the first time he ran. And we both ended up running in the 4.6s.
Nice.
So pretty good speed for the positions that we were playing.
So this, I'm always curious about agents and management and producers and all that stuff. So curious question. Do you have to reimburse the agent once you have your deal over and above their percentage?
So there are some agents that will structure it like that, or, they won't cover your training. with the deals that we signed, it was, they're paying for it all up front, and then they'll make their money back on the percentage from the contracts.
Okay, so they don't try and get back their investment.
No, so it's not something where they get all their money back first. They just get, on average, it's a 3% cut of your entire salary going forward from that point forward.
Yeah, so
and that's only with the contract they negotiate too. So if you sign as a rookie and then you switch agents that same year, but you're locked into a 4-year contract, your new agent doesn't get any of the money until that first contract runs out.
Okay.
And then vice versa, though. Yeah, if you are with the first agent for your first 3 years and you go into that second contract where you make a lot of money, but you switch and that second agent does it for you, the second agent gets paid everything. So the agent world it's rough.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep those guys happy all the time, or they're gonna leave and go to someone else.
Right. No doubt about it. So competitive. So that first year, was that with the Cowboys?
So first year was with the Cowboys. Second year I was with the Colts, and went to the Broncos. Got traded to the Broncos my third year, and then went into camp with the Chargers in my fourth year.
So me being here in Dallas and a lifelong Cowboy fan, that was Wade Phillips. Who was offensive coordinator that year?
Yeah, that was
Is that Jason Garrett?
Jason Garrett ended up being the head coach halfway through the year.
Okay, I remember that year well. So what was your experience like with the Cowboys?
So it was incredible, actually. You walk in there, you pretty much know every player already. Everyone's a superstar, and you're like, man, first off, I can't even believe Dallas even called me. Second off, I can't believe I'm here. And then when you make the team, it's like, this is insane. I thought there was, for the Cowboys, it was a tough place to play, especially as a rookie, just because the way Jerry Jones runs things. I didn't know it at the time, but he lets anyone in the locker room.
Okay.
And people that are in Dallas, the media is, they're trying to make a story.
Yeah.
So they'll make a story about anything they possibly can that's going to get some eyeballs on it. So it was pretty crazy. Whereas when I went to other places, it was all about building up the players, making them look good in the community, writing good stories about them. In Dallas, it was like, we will bash anyone for anything. And my first day of practice, I walked out, and first reporter comes out to me. And he's like, "Hey, would love to get a story on you." I'm like, "Cool, like, this is awesome." And his first question is like, "Name 5 presidents." And I'm like, what's this guy trying to do here? So I rattle off 5 presidents, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. And he started asking me questions like that had nothing to do with football. So I answer him, and I kind of walk away, and I'm all nervous for my first practice. And the next day, this whole article comes out. Gronkowski will not make team, cannot even name 5 presidents. This guy pretty much is just saying that I'm an idiot. And I'm like, wow, well, that's a good first article,
is
right?
Is he still in the media now?
They had some rough articles that year, so I'm guessing they cleaned it up a little bit. One of the other articles that I saw come out was about one of our offensive linemen just being too ugly to make the team. I'm like, this is
I'm
crazy.
saying, is that reporter still in the media?
I'm not sure. I'm sure he's somewhere, but I could probably try to find the article, but it's not even worth anyone's time.
Yeah, that's too bad. I had a NFL insider once tell me, and I can't say who it is because he works with them, but he's like, that's the problem with Dallas is it's Jerry world and it's all about entertainment. You go to Pittsburgh, it's all about football.
Yeah.
Right. There's certain places, New England, it's about football. It's not how can we build this entertainment media thing. And, it's a plus minus. But
it definitely is.
But on the football side, it's not worked out too well at the end of the day, right? Since Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, for sure. As a player, I mean, it definitely puts more stress on you. There was times where there were reporters in the air in the locker room from guys, that they would write a story on a guy and they come in the next day and try to write another story on him and come interview him. And we had some guys that had some attitude, man. So there was a couple of reporters slammed up against lockers a few times.
Who was the running back then?
So we had Marion Barber, Tashard Choice, and Felix Jones.
Okay,
when I was there.
Okay, that's 3 pretty good.
Yeah, it's 3 good backs. That was a good running back room.
Yeah. So you played 4 years in the NFL, which got you on their pension, right, and health insurance and all that good stuff. And then you decided to go into the business world. And so talk about that journey and transition into business that eventually led you to being on Shark Tank in the company you now currently have.
Yeah, that was quite the journey. But yeah, I mean, it all starts with, getting 1 year, and I get 1 year and I'm like, man, if I could get 3 years, that gives me the retirement benefits that I need to go to the next level. Also will give me enough money, to kind of fund it. And I wasn't, and a lot of people think like, you're a multi-millionaire the second you leave the NFL, right? It wasn't the case at all. I mean, as a starting fullback, my rookie year, I made $305,000. So after expenses, taxes, everything else, I wasn't even close to a millionaire. Going through my whole contract, I didn't even leave the NFL after 4 years with $1 million. So what I did leave with was those retirement benefits that you're talking about, though. You get pension, you have a nice 401k built up if you put it in, which some guys actually don't, but they give you a nice double match on it. So you're crazy if you don't. You get a severance, you get healthcare benefits as well. You actually get healthcare for 5 years plus additional benefits per year that you played. So with that, you're leaving with a good chunk of money without debt. I went to school, I only had to pay for the one semester. So I'm leaving. I'm so far ahead of everyone else at that point that's my age. And I have this money that I can invest into whatever I want to. So I actually went into my business with my wife at first. She started a business, an Etsy shop.
And that's your high school sweetheart, right?
High school sweetheart from Buffalo. Yep. So
good job.
She started, I guess it was 4 different cities in 4 years because of all the teams that I went to and leaving college. In Denver, my 3rd year, she decided to find a way to work from home. So she started a personalization shop, did really well. I did that for 5 years. Ended up I was making more money doing that than I was playing in the NFL after 3 years. So it was a good transition for me, but that was kind of lucky. I saw a lot of other guys that I played with that took them years to kind of figure out what they're going to do next and what their identity was. And it was still the same way with me as well. I'm now making good money with my wife. Everything's good. But what is my true identity at this point? I was this football player. I grew up in sports and fitness. My dad had this fitness equipment business I delivered equipment for, played sports my whole life. And now, I'm making wedding gifts. It wasn't really me. So after 5 years in, thought of the idea for Ice Shaker. And that was kind of like, hey, that's me. I could go to the gym. I could call this work by making a video at the gym. Like, this is awesome. Let's go in on it. Let's kind of start this as a side hustle. Let's see where it goes. And if it gets to that place where, we can make this a full-time thing, let's do it. So that was kind of the mentality going into it. And at the same time with that mentality, I knew I also had this email from 2012 when I was with the Broncos that was just saying, hey, ABC Shark Tank is looking for any current or former NFL players. If there's any interest, if you want to pitch them, just email us back. So about 4.5 years later, I finally emailed it back, and that was the spark. That's what got me onto ABC Shark Tank.
Having been the marketing guy behind Jim Rohn International, which I founded in 1993, and having worked with and coached many entrepreneurs to 7- and 8-figure businesses, the number one question I get is, how can people work directly with me? I know busy entrepreneurs don't have time to always dive into tons of information. They want direct one-on-one answers and strategies. So here are 2 of the best ways to work directly with me. First is with the Kyle Wilson Inner Circle Mastermind. We have the best members from all over the country who attend our live and virtual events, plus the most incredible guests show up to share their wisdom and let the group do Q&A. Recent guests have been Dennis Waitley, Les Brown, Mark Victor Hansen, Phil Collin of Def Leppard, Glenn Morshower, Todd Stoudemire, Ray and Jessica Higdon, Tom Ziegler, Mitzi Perdue, Brian Tracy, Bob Berg, and many more. You'll also have access to over 100 hours of training in our members site. And most importantly, though, you're going to have 2 live calls a month, plus multiple live in-person meetings throughout the year. In fact, my next event is May 5 and 6 here in Dallas. To learn more, go to kylewilson.com/mastermind. And the second way to connect with me one-on-one is I just launched a new marketing VIP coaching program. It includes 3 live trainings a month, plus 4 live Q&A calls a month to ask me, as well as Paul Counts and Sharia Banerjee, anything related to marketing. This will be a game changer for you in building your business and brand. To sign up today, go to kylewilson.com/VIP marketing. That's kylewilson.com/VIP marketing. And when you go there, you're going to see some pretty powerful testimonials from Darren Hardy, Jim Rohn, Les Brown, Mark Victor Hansen, Brian Tracy, and many more about the impact I've had for them through marketing. Go to kylewilson.com/VIP marketing. So that was 2017. And I remember it. I was watching it. Here's this, super healthy, good looking kid talking about the, keeping your protein shakes cold.
Yep.
And then out comes the four brothers, Rob being one of the guys, probably the biggest, maybe.
Yeah,
right?
he's up there.
Yeah.
He's up there.
And the Sharks loved you guys. And we talked about this at the Inner Circle where he said, they show 5 or 7 minutes, but it was actually like an hour-long thing that they cut out all the in-depth questions. And you guys also brought a lot of entertainment value, right? You were doing the Gronkowski brother thing, and you were forced the Sharks to play a game with you that they lost. If I remember
they got
right.
crushed. Yeah, they got crushed. They tried cheating too. It's bad. It was bad.
But just tell the audience a little bit about the lessons about being on Shark Tank and the experience afterwards. And it was definitely a positive for you in the business, right? Yeah,
it was huge for us. So went all the way back to really, I first reached out to them about 3 months into the company's life. So at that time, we had about $25,000 in sales. I wanted to wait until there's at least something there before I reached back out to this email. So at that time, I had a proof of concept, reached out. They said, hey, submit a video. If we like it, we'll take you to the next step. So I did. They liked it, was able to go on to the next steps. And they said, hey, you have 3 months before we film. So get ready is kind of what it was. So at that point, it was get as much sales as I possibly could so I could get the best valuation possible. So I got up to I think it was about 80,000 in sales. Got on the show. I was asking for $1 million. I was asking at $1 million valuation. I was asking for $100,000 for 10% of the company at that point. So got on, and really the lessons were, just show up, have confidence, have fun, and know what you're talking about is what it pretty much comes down to. I watched every episode. I wrote down every question they ever asked. I pretty much felt like I was best friends with every single shark out there except for Alex because he'd never been on a previous episode. So at that point, it was walking out there. Instead of being nervous, it was like, hey, I feel like I know you guys.
But that was probably a big step, right? I mean, would you typically have been nervous, or
is that for sure? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I would say very comparable to sports,
right?
You go out there, you could prepare all day, every day, but that first play, you're waiting for the ball to be kicked off. You're kind of shaking, you're kind of nervous, you're almost kind of frozen for a minute, but then it all kicks in, and it's just repetition. You know exactly what to say, what to do because you practice it. You have the confidence because you put the work in at the end of the day. And so I was prepared as I possibly could be. Went over the pitch so many times that I still remember it today. I could probably say it right now. So I repeated it so many times to myself. And after that, it was just all about going out there and also just having fun with it, like making them, feel like they knew you, becoming, because you want to work with people that you love being around, and,
right.
And that's kind of how I wanted to approach it. Was, they can work with anyone in the world. They can invest in any company they want. But if the person that they're investing with, they don't like, they're never going to actually move forward with it. So that was definitely part of the game plan as well.
And there's definitely some risk on trying to get on. You put a lot of seed money into creating Ice Shaker, right?
For sure.
$250,000, and then you have to have it prepared, and you don't know if you're going to get on the show. But if you get on the show, sales are going to explode. Yep. So you got to have inventory. And I've heard like only 30% of the deals even go through that they show on that happen. So talk, and I think the contract might be a little bit one-sided. And is it negotiable? Like, give us some deal points,
for sure.
The pros and cons, because there's also a big uplift in business too, though.
Big time. So yeah, I was told that deals closing. So Mark, I was told, closes the most deals. I think he closes over 50% of them. But yeah, I think the average is definitely below 50%. And it's a big question mark on if you're even gonna record when you get there, if you get there to record. Then when you record, are you going to get a deal? Maybe, maybe not.
So they make people wait around and they still might not record?
Correct. Yeah.
Is that kind of like at the very end of the process because they're done with the shows?
I'm not sure where it comes in at what part, but the first person I met outside the hotel when we went to record was pacing back and forth, telling me that he was there the year before, and he wanted to know if I was going to actually record that day. And I was like, I think so. I think that's why I'm here. And he went through the whole thing the previous year. I think it was a supplement company or something where some of the claims are a little bit iffy, and he wasn't able to prove it to him, so they pushed him back to the next year. So I'm not sure what the actual process is. I think if they get a bunch of good people in one day, they kind of just send home the seventh person or whatever it is to go and maybe come back the next day or the next year. But then even when you record, you're not guaranteed to air. In fact, they actually don't even tell you when you're going to air until 2 weeks before. So that's where all the sellouts come from. You sit there and you watch the show and like, how did this company possibly sell out all their inventory in 3 hours when this is the biggest moment ever for them, right? And when you think about it and you go through the whole process, you realize that this is a huge risk. Not only might you never air, you might also air in 6 months, towards the end of the season, or you might air next week, or next 2 weeks. You don't know until you actually are told. So at that point, a lot of people can't get inventory in time. It's just not physically possible. Most of the time, you need minimum 30-day lead time. So that was tough. I had a pretty good idea that we'd probably air, especially after they asked for my entire family to be on the episode. So I kind of had a bulletproof plan. Like, I know this is going to air if I record, because the whole idea behind the very first email that they sent me in 2012 was to get more audience to come watch their show. And to do that, they're bringing in superstars from other sports. So fortunately for me, it was like, hey, I know I'm going to air. Let's just stack up on inventory the second the show ends. So I pretty much had a 90-day window before I aired it, and it just happened to be that way. But the second I got the deal, I went home that week and I ordered more inventory.
And so we'll talk a little bit about what your product is. And what I love about Ice Shakers is it's synergistic with your wife's business too. And you guys have figured out how not to sell one at a time. You can sell, like I bought 150 at a time.
I like those ones.
Because you were able to brand it for me. And I had it's so funny how the world works, the universe works. The night before I met you, I had tried to order a different brand from someone. They told me it was going to be 8 weeks, and it just was so difficult. And I ended up saying, never mind. And then I meet you the next day, and you say you can have them for me in 5 days at a much better price. So you guys are very competent and you move fast. And now you have a huge warehouse here in Colleyville, and you built an amazing business. You started out as B2C, right? So you direct to consumer, selling through your website. And then after Shark Tank, I guess they helped set you up with some B2B companies, right? Like who are some of your
right away, GNC ended up getting Vitamin Shop, Lifetime Fitness, another nice account for us. Just most recently went into 1900 Walmarts. They've helped connect us with Good Morning America, QVC, all these bigger names that, right out the gate are tough to get into. It's really hard to get those connections. So
you got the benefit then from, and your deal was with Mark Cuban and Alex Rodriguez.
Yep.
And then Rob bought out Alex.
So Rob ended up coming in. He had this great idea to retire from the NFL, and wanted to kind of figure out the business world a little bit more as well. And at that point, reached out and said, "Hey, we'd love to kind of figure things out. How can I get in?" And we found a way to work a deal with Alex where they agreed on a couple different things. He went into another business with Alex as well. He had to go on his podcast on Barstool Sports, and they worked this cool deal out. And Alex ended up selling to Rob and made a nice little profit himself. So he can't be too upset about it.
And I think you've told me Cuban gives you free reign. He's not trying to get into your day to day, but he has supplied some good resources, his team. And so you guys have had great growth, right? The last 5 years. Yeah,
for sure. So, I mean, right out the gate, it exploded. I would say I think we probably 20X'd the next 12 months after we aired on Shark Tank. And then after that, it just sustained growth. So, we try to grow at least 30% every single year.
So talk about what the products are that you have.
Yeah, for sure. So it started with just one bottle, one color, one size. The whole idea was, I had a plastic shaker bottle. I also had an insulated cup that I'd bring to work. So bring the insulated cup to work, go home, grab the plastic shaker, make my pre-workout or whatever it was, bring it with me to the gym. And by the time I got there, it was sweating. I take a sip. It was warm. It smelled awful. I'm like, man, why isn't this awesome technology of this insulated cup in the form that I could actually use, at the gym, but really all day? That was the idea, was I just want one cup. I didn't want like 5 different cups in the sink. I was a very simple guy, and let's just make one cup I could use for literally everything. So started on the journey to create something that can actually blend powders, keep your drink cold. And I love the shaker bottle. That was kind of what I would use all day if I could. So took what I loved out of that and then replaced what I didn't love with, the insulated kitchen grade stainless steel, keep your drinks cold. I found a way to blend it. I love the easy open pop top. I wanted a handle on it as well, so it was easy to carry. And I kind of just took all my favorite things and put them into one cup.
And then your wife's business is a promotion business where they do the personalized graphics and things on different items. And so you've been able to incorporate that together.
Yeah. So for 5 years, I was running laser engravers and diamond tips, and realized how powerful customization was, especially if you could turn it quick. But it makes it special for everyone. People are willing to pay more for it. It really separates you as well. And if you do it quick, it's a massive separator, because like you said, a lot of companies are asking 5, 6, 7 weeks, sometimes a couple months.
And especially during COVID, things have really, hard to get to. So that additionally is why I was so shocked you could turn it in 5 days for me.
Yeah.
And deliver it, by the way.
I think we turned yours to the next day.
You did. It was crazy.
Ended up bringing it with me on a Wednesday, a couple days later. But that's what it was all about. I mean, my wife's business grew so fast just from word of mouth, because people would order, and the same day we'd ship it, they'd email us and say, hey, you forgot to engrave it. You forgot to customize it. And we'd have to write back and say, no, it's coming. It'll be there in 2 days. And it is customized exactly how you wrote it. And then it arrives, the quality's good, the engraving's amazing, the customization's correct. And they're so excited and happy about it, because most people wait till the last minute to order everything, that they go and tell everyone. And then the next time they need something last minute, they come back to us as well. So we pick up a ton of business, and we really separate ourselves by being able to offer quick and fast customization.
There's so many moving pieces to be an entrepreneur, starting a new business. Starting a new business is the hardest thing out there.
Oh, man.
And I'm sure you've had to learn on the go. So what have been some of the biggest opportunities for you to grow as an entrepreneur and as a person through this whole process?
Man, there's been so many things that I've learned. The first thing by far was patience. Like you're never going to conquer the entire market overnight. You could throw money at it, you could throw whatever at it, but a lot of it comes from relationships and just figuring things out and putting the right processes and people in place, which takes time, no matter how much money you throw at it. So patience was huge. Through that whole process, I also had kids. So I threw that in the mix too. And it took me from, working 100 hours a week down to, hey, I got to put people in place and processes in place to really be able to also spend time with my family as well. So I would say that's the biggest thing that came from it. Learning how to slow down, really respect time in the process, and building something that you can scale without just one person. Building a team is what ends up coming out of it.
And your father was so instrumental in your sports career, but you talked about he'd been in the fitness business. Has he been a mentor to you as well in business now?
Yeah, so 32 years in the fitness industry, and 17 retail stores. He has the rights to the whole Northeast for the most part for a lot of the commercial divisions of fitness equipment. So he wanted to be a mentor in sports and in business, and I would say in both of them I didn't listen at first, and then it took me time to kind of realize he was right. It took me time to go back. So yeah, absolutely. Definitely helped out sports wise, and then right in business as well. The first 2 years, it was the same thing. I didn't listen to anything he said. He kept telling me, hey, you got to get the inventory right. You got to do this, you got to do that. You got to build a process. What's your budget look like? I'm like, Dad, it's we just spend. If it works, we keep spending. What do you mean? What budget? Well, what's your game plan? We'll just keep throwing stuff out there. That's the game plan. I don't know. And, it really came down to the point where the pandemic hits, things slow down. There's no processes in place. There's no budget. And it was like, wow, I better figure this out pretty quick here. So it wasn't that, everything just faded away or anything like that. It was, hey, there's no process in place. I can't be here anymore because, I can only come in the store when half of our employees are there because of these new COVID mandates. And I have kids at home. So it was, hey, let's figure out how to actually do this the right way. Let's figure out how to build a team. And that's right when I went right back to my dad and said, how'd you build the 200 employees? That's insane. At that time, I think I had 8. I was trying to manage 8, and I'm like, this is crazy. How'd you get there? And he's like, hey, right back to where I told you from day one. What's the game plan? What's the budget? What's the forecast? How are you incentivizing people? Tell me that first, and I'll tell you how to fix it.
And so, you've talked about this before, building a team, and you come from team sports. And so it's all kind of together now in the language and everything you've always done before, where if the team wins, then everyone wins, right?
Big time. And that's exactly where I was going wrong as well. The first thing was it wasn't a team. It was me, and it was me making every decision, me with all the responsibilities. And, I thought that was how it was supposed to be because it was my business. So finally, when it couldn't be like that anymore, I finally had to delegate. I was kind of forced to delegate at that point. And that was one of my dad's key things from day one as well. You better learn how to delegate pretty quickly or you're not going to grow. And so with that, that came about. I finally started delegating. And when I started to, I realized that people responded well to it. I felt like early on, if I made someone do something, it was like, hey, I should be doing it. Why am I making them do something that they shouldn't be doing, kind of thing? And I almost felt bad about it. But once I started doing it the right way, it was like, hey, they love it. They now have responsibility. They now feel like they're part of the team. They can make their own decisions. They want more. They love it. Like everyone's responding well. Everyone can win now. Everyone knows what to do. And so at that point, you start figuring that out with the whole team. It starts with one guy, then the next guy, and then you start putting a game plan in place to make sure everyone's aligning as a team because, you start getting different divisions and people start getting a little crazy and competing. And, we had a sales team and we had a commission. We had a fulfillment team that wasn't, they didn't have a piece of any of the pie or the goals or anything out there. And at the end of the day, it just became a thing where, you get a big order, the sales team would crush it. They'd be going crazy and the fulfillment team's pissed. They're like, what do you mean you're pissed? This is, it's your job technically, right? You should be happy that, this guy's keeping us in business, but that's just not how it is. One person gets it. The other person feels like they're having to do all the work. So we had to really realign all the goals and really incentivize everything as a team instead of an individual. And once we did that, I would then walk in with Big Sal and everyone in the entire company's pumped. And that's when I knew that we figured this thing out.
So having said that, do you see yourself as the rainmaker on the sales part?
I actually, at this point, I start dishing it off to my team now. I realize that when people start asking me why I'm doing it, or they start asking me like, hey, who's the person I should send the sales to? That's when I start realizing that I should probably be doing something at the next level. So I'm starting to get there. I still do put orders in myself and I do bring in some big orders, but I'm starting to be more of the coach instead of more of the player at this point.
That's good. And so as far as a schedule and routines, I know you're a dad now, right?
Yep.
You have 3 with 1 on the way.
Yep.
You've got a team. How big's the team now?
So I think we're up to 15 now as of this month.
Okay. And you have a pretty big shipping. Like I see your post on social media. You have a pretty big warehouse.
Yeah. We can store a little over 100,000 bottles in our warehouse.
And you have a lot of different SKUs, right?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. I think I just imported them all to one of our rep groups. And I think we had 121 active SKUs right now.
That's crazy. And you're very active on social media too, doing videos and things. So do you rely on schedules? Like, do you have certain times a day that you try and do things?
Oh, 100%. I have to. That's right back to the beginning where I didn't have a calendar. I didn't have a schedule. And it was just, you just kind of flow with it. Nothing really gets done. You never really accomplish your goal because there is no goal. So I live and breathe by my schedule now. I think I texted you this morning at 7 a.m. just making sure we were still on. just to double check, because every single thing I do is scheduled out now at this point. But for me, it gets things done. And the second thing it does is it puts a sense of urgency on things. I always relate it back to studying for a test. If you know this test is in 2 weeks, you're going to wait till the week before. You might look at your books, but the day before, you're finally going to sit down and be like, all right, let me make sure I actually get this done. Let me make sure I actually know what I'm talking about. It's the same way for a schedule. If I put it on my calendar, I give myself a 30-minute block, it's got to be done in that 30 minutes. If it's not, it's a problem. And a lot of times, even when I give myself 30 minutes, I'm still sitting there in the last 5 minutes, just cramming it in, finishing it right at the last minute. Because I think we're just programmed that way, where if you have that time, you're going to use it all. And if you take that time away from yourself, you're gonna get it done. You're gonna find a way to just do it. So I've always used the schedule just to give me that sense of urgency as well.
And that exists a lot in athletics too, right? Like football coaches,
Everything.
They like to keep everything on schedule, keep the same routine.
Absolutely.
Don't mix it up.
And you walked in with an itinerary every single day.
Yeah.
When I was playing the NFL. I mean, the second you walk in, hey, here's the schedule for today. Every single minute is accounted for on that schedule when you walk into that facility.
So for you, what are some of the things that you schedule? Workout times, company meetings, family time?
I'm pretty much, I'm trying to pretty much schedule everything at this point because it works. I mean, the biggest thing that I wasn't scheduling was social media. I would always kind of just throw it in there. But I realized that if I actually give myself a 10-minute block to make one video post a day, which I was doing pretty much one a day with TikTok, and was able to really scale my TikTok just by setting aside 10 minutes. So it would even come down to, hey, I got 10 minutes to make a video and post it. It would happen. And if it wasn't on my schedule, it didn't happen. So I hadn't had it on my schedule this whole month. It hasn't happened the whole month. So
do you do it yourself, or do you have someone that films it and they load it?
I was doing it all myself. So I do have someone that helps me a little bit now, kind of, get stuff up, and podcasts and stuff like this. When it comes in, I want to make sure I hit every single platform and get it all posted. So I'll send it over to my team to help me out with that.
And it sounds like it's pretty organic, though. You're just being yourself, right? And you're talking about what's on your mind, or?
Yeah. So I like kind of just giving the behind the scenes of my life. And I think a lot of people just relate. I mean, I post things, a lot of it's sports related. So my actual posts, but a lot of the stories and stuff behind the scenes is, for instance, this morning, my wife is just notorious for not putting the garbage bag back into the garbage can. Like she'll take the garbage out of it, but not put it in. So,
and we'll edit this part out, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, we're not. We're leaving this in because I even tagged her in it just to let her. I always let her know about it. But when you go to open the garbage can and you drop it in there, but then there's not a bag, and you're like, because you just expect the bag to be there, right? So that's what I did this morning. So I posted about stuff like that, where just people, it's just super relatable. Because, then if your friend or your wife or your roommate or whatever it is does the same thing, you take that story and you send it to them. And then, it just becomes a great way to just really relate to other people, and then also grow a following on social media.
And you talk a lot of sports too, right? NFL, just doing Q&A and things like that.
Yeah, I love going on, answering questions. A lot of it's behind the scenes. People think athletes and players are just completely, invincible, or just completely different types of people, right? They don't realize that, the NFL is just like any other job for the most part. You're going to go in, the same rules apply for the most part. As an NFL player, you actually, I think, are held to a higher standard, where a lot of people think you walk in, you play this game, and it's fun, and, it must be so nice, and you get paid all this money. When you start really breaking it down and showing people what the day-to-day is of an athlete, it's like, wow, I understand, what they're going through now. I understand why they're getting paid a lot. And, even posts like talking about, hey, if I'm late 1 minute, I get fined $1,000. If I'm 1 pound overweight, I get fined $520. And this was back when I was playing. So I'm sure it's like double or triple now. And, you post stuff like that, and people are like, oh, I thought it was just like a game you showed up and played. But at the end of the day, it's a game on Sunday, and it's a job from Monday really through Saturday.
Keith Elias, a good friend of mine that's been in my books and has spoken in my inner circles. He played 6 years in the NFL and works with the player re-engagement. And because of the former players, he's like 95% of the NFL players left not on their own choice, right? It was either injury or they were cut. Only 5% get to say, hey, I'm going to walk away. And I think the public just doesn't get how difficult, how challenging. It is, and especially players that leave the NFL, not by choice, if they don't have a plan B, and, having that team together, going out on a Sunday, 60,000 fans, that's got to be a tough transition. And sounds like you made the transition, but was that difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of going back to the question about schedule as well, you don't have that schedule anymore. All of a sudden, you literally have nothing to do. You have no one telling you, hey, you got to be here at 7 a.m. or more like 5 a.m. for the most part. But, that's gone. And now it's all up to you. And you can literally just lay in your bed all day, every day, if you wanted to, because it's kind of like the Army, all of that scheduling and planning is now gone. That whole routine is just not there anymore. So a lot of guys struggle with that. I felt like that was something I had to immediately get back into, because that first month I slept in every day. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then after a month, you're like,
Did you have kids at the time?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you didn't have that to push you either, right? It was just a spouse and yourself potentially having to.
And you have, and a lot of guys when they leave, I mean, they have a good chunk of money, so you have a nice little runway that you can pretty much figure things out. But it's kind of that schedule's gone, your loss of identity. That's all you've been known for your whole life. And now all of a sudden, that's not what you are anymore. So a lot of guys struggle with that, trying to figure out who they are now, what's next, the next thing to do. And really at the end of the day, you're also behind. I mean, you go to get a job and people say like, what is really your skills? The skills I practiced for the last 4 years were, trying to block a guy, trying to catch a football. People say like, oh, you must have learned like discipline and stuff. And yeah, you do, but it's not an actual skill that you could then, say, hey, I've been in accounting for the last 4 years and, take the next step up or whatever it is. It's, hey, I've been blocking people and, here I am. What can I do now? So the physical part's there, but the actual, skill set that you learn, really doesn't transfer over.
Well, Chris, it's been so great to have you with us today. We could go on and on. I didn't really even
warming
talk,
up, baby.
Hey, I didn't even talk football, which I can get very controversial. Like we could go there, but I'm not going to do that with you today. Not going to put you on the spot. Other than, do you have any hot sports opinions about the NFL or Major League Baseball? Because I know your brother played for a while. And any final things you want to say about the sports world? No,
I mean, people ask me all the time because I do the behind the scenes. They're like, well, was it worth it? And to me, yeah, 100%. It opened up so many doors. The money, you can't complain, even though I was the lowest paid guy. You can't sit there and you can't get that type of money coming right out of college doing anything else. And really at that point, and they say, well, you get hurt or like everyone goes broke after 5 years. It's all about the opportunities that you actually that you use after you're done playing, because it opens every door you want it to open. If you want it to open that door and you actually want to use it. So much has come out of it. It opens up doors all the time. And if you actually show up, you're going to be successful. And if you put that same effort in, you're going to be successful. Just my analogy to it is, and I made a post about this, and some people were like, I can't believe you're talking about football. But I went back to talking about, hey, what if you really wanted this job? You worked for it for 10 years for free. And then, only out of that, after 10 years, 1% of those people actually get the job. And once they get it, it only lasts for maybe 2 years. It might be high paying. You might get hurt. You're probably going to have surgery. Would you take it? And everyone was like, wow, who would ever take that job? And then at the end of it, I was like, well, that's an NFL player. That's what they do. And everyone's like, well, I never thought of it that way. And so, if you take that same effort, though, that you put in to get to the NFL and you put that in the sports world, you're going to be just as successful outside of football as well.
No doubt. Does Cuban ever hook you up with tickets to the match?
He does, man. He hooked the whole squad up. We got two entire rows to one of the games in January. So, yeah, that was nice. I'm still waiting for the floor seats for the whole team.
Well, do you have to message him occasionally?
So, yeah, I do. What I was going to do too is we hit our goal for last year, and I was going to put in this year. If we hit our goal again, I want a permanent, 2 seats on the floor.
That's impossible to get.
I didn't put it in the contract, so I didn't throw it to him yet. So
I say it's impossible to get because one season I did get the hookup, not from him, but from a guy that was buying my companies, and he had 2 seats. And the only way he got 2 seats on the floor, he pulled off a big favor when Miami and Dallas played. Anyway, it's a big favor I won't get into when they played in the finals in 2006. And so he would let me have those, and 4 or 5 times. And Daniel got Dirk Nowitzki giving him his towel twice, got the big hookup, 2 different games. And Josh Howard gave him a headband. I mean, we were right there, and it was really cool. But Stuart told me, he said, you can't buy, they don't exist. You can't buy 4 seats.
You got to negotiate into your Shark Tank contract.
I don't know that you could get a season, but they are pricey too, right? So I don't know if you'd want to own season tickets on the floor.
No, I would just, I'm good with 1 game. That's all I need.
Yeah, no, those you can buy. Those you could, stuff.
That's all I need, just 1.
Yeah, and we would.
Just for photo, just for social media.
Well, hey, I love it. So if people want to engage you on social media, let's start with that, and then we'll go into if they want to buy some of the products you offer. But how can people find you on social?
Yeah, for sure. So check me out at Chris Gronkowski. I'm everywhere on social media. So a lot on Instagram, TikTok. I'm on TikTok answering questions all the time. But what I love for people to do is anyone who's listening today, go onto my Instagram if you have Instagram and leave me a comment about your favorite thing you heard today. Just one thing that you learned that you thought was interesting, you thought was unique, and I'll write back to you as well. I love writing back. Ask any questions as well. I can respond to those. I usually do through different reels, so I'll make a video response. So if any questions from today that I can answer for you, please ask me some questions on social as well.
Nice. It sounds like you like Instagram and TikTok. Those are your 2 favorite.
TikTok's, it's fun. It's different. It's unique. It's all video though, so it's a little bit harder for me to share kind of like the behind the scenes of what I'm doing all day. So the kids, just some fun stuff that I'm doing. Yeah, I'll post this, the little bit behind the scenes of this podcast today. And you're not going to see that on TikTok, because TikTok is all permanent posts, and you're not going to really get that kind of behind the scenes feel to really know somebody. So that's why I personally like Instagram a little bit more.
And then if they're interested in buying an ice shaker or any of the other promotional products you guys offer, what's the best way to learn more about both companies?
Yeah, so please check out Ice Shaker at iceshaker.com. We're, of course, on Amazon. We're in GNC, Lifetime Fitness, all that as well. But you're going to get the best selection on our website. You're going to be able to personalize it as well. If you want that quick turnaround time, just let me know. We got you. And then check out my wife's site. It's called Everything Decorated. So everythingdecorated.com, or she's on Etsy as well. And the shop name's the same, at Everything Decorated.
Awesome. Well, hey, Chris, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great.
Thanks for having me.